Yeah. Good evening. Welcome to our meeting. This is the business meeting for the Cave Creek Unified School District. It is 6 o'clock and it is Tuesday, October 8th. Item 1.2, our Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by Connor Dusek. He is an 8th grader at Snoring Trails. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, roll call. All members of the board are present with the exception of Member Moore, who is attending a previously scheduled engagement. Members of the cabinet present are Dr. Pletnick, Dr. Hendrickson, Dr. Jensen, and of course, Mr. Dolezal. Item 1.4, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item 1.5, President's Report. Since our last board meeting, I attended the September Employee of the Month breakfast, and I'd like to say once again congratulations to all of our employees of the month, and also thank you again for all that you do. I attended the Cactus Shadows football home opener against Boulder Creek, and we won. And I also had an opportunity to visit Mr. DeVore's Spanish class at Snoring Trails, and I was very impressed, and I need to brush up on my Spanish. And while Member Moore is not here, I do have a couple of highlights of things that he's done. He also was at the Cactus Shadows home opener, and he had the honor of doing the coin toss. He's also been helping out at the concessions at the football games. He attended the homecoming committee meeting, and he was actually with me, and the two of us visited Mr. DeVore's Spanish class. And that's all he's done. Anybody else? Brianna?
Yes, it's been busy. I also attended the home opening game with my family, and then at the next game was able to do the coin toss as well, so got to go onto the field. And those football players were very big, so they don't look that big when you're up in the stands. So that was a great experience to have. I did also participate with my family in the CCUEF Golf the District, so a different setup this year at the tee box. A lot of great family time for that. Next week I am looking forward to doing our business partner breakfast. We have another mountain bike race coming up locally next weekend, the day after the homecoming dance. So it's going to be a busy October for sure. And then I know the arts department finishes up the end of the month with their production of Alice in Wonderland. So invite all you kids to go see that. It's a really great show.
I didn't have anything for the last week, but I am looking forward to the coffee with the superintendent this Friday. So I will be there for that. And that's actually all I have for this time. Thanks.
And I had the opportunity to do the coin toss for the football game this last Saturday. It was a Saturday game, and Las Vegas came into town, and it was fun. It was a beautiful evening, well attended, and they are big, those football players. My biggest fear was fumbling the coin toss, but I didn't. I managed to do that. But it was great to see all the families out there and all the pink and great support, and it was just great. And then I'm looking forward to working the concession stand at the game on, I believe, November 1st, so it'll be fun.
Very cool. All right, item 1.7, Superintendent's Report.
President Busby, members of the board. First, I agree with Vice President Walker. There was a great event from CCUEF Golf the District, that new inside golf. So on a day that it was 110, everybody was in air conditioning enjoying some golf from around the world. Pebble Beach, I believe, is where we were hitting them at during the day. Then I would very much like to congratulate Cactus Shadows High School students Maya Angorn, Jacob Duffy, Aviva Merchandani, and Mia Quentzler for being named commended students in the 2025 National Merit Scholarship Program. I am proud to report, also hot off the presses, that Cactus Shadows High School has been named to the AP Honor Roll for the 2023-24 school year. The AP School Honor Roll recognizes schools whose AP programs are delivering results for students while broadening access. The AP Scholar Honor Roll offers 4 levels of distinction: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. For a school to be recognized in a given year, it must meet each of the following criteria. College culture, 40% or more of the graduating cohort took at least one AP exam. Cactus Shadows had 54%, silver distinction. College credit, 25% or more of the graduating cohort scored a 3 or higher on at least one AP exam. Cactus Shadows, the requirement or the bar was 25%. Cactus Shadows was at 36%, receiving gold distinction. College optimization, 2% or more of the graduating cohort took 5 or more AP exams during high school, and at least one of those exams was taken during their freshman or sophomore year, so that the students are spreading out their AP experience rather than feeling disproportionate pressure in any single year. The bar for that was 2%. Cactus Shadows had 13%, again, gold distinction. And last, but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Connor Dusick, a eighth grader at Sonoran Trails Middle School, who is our Student Leader of the Month and on the dais with us this evening. Connor?
Hello, my name is Connor Dusick, and I am a student at Sonoran Trails Middle School. I am an honor student, and I also play on the 8th grade baseball team. I am an active participant in our community, umpiring for the Cactus Foothills Little League, and am a member of the Cave Creek Junior Falcons Club baseball team. We have the best teachers at STMS, and I look forward to interacting and learning from them as well as my peers every day. I will continue to strive for excellence, both in academics and athletics, and it's an honor to be selected as student leader to represent STMS. Thank you.
And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Okay. Item 2.1 are October Students of the Month. It is with great pleasure and pride that we come together to celebrate some truly exceptional individuals, our Students of the Month. Each month, we are privileged to recognize students who exemplify the core values of our district: perseverance, leadership, compassion, and excellence. Tonight, we are not just honoring academic achievement, but also the qualities that make our students well-rounded individuals and future leaders. The renowned American author and poet Maya Angelou, who once said, "Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it." This perfectly reflects the students we recognize today, who have not only achieved success, but done so with passion and dedication. Our Students of the Month have pushed their limits, inspired their peers, and made their families, teachers, and community proud. Whether excelling in academics, arts, athletics, or leadership, they remind us that greatness is achievable with hard work and commitment. As we honor our Students of the Month, let us also remember that their achievements are not solely their own. Behind every successful student stands a network of supportive parents, caring teachers, and a community that believes in their potential. It is with this collective together effort that nurtures the growth of these remarkable individuals. To our honorees, congratulations. You represent the very best of the Cave Creek Unified School District, and we are excited to witness the incredible contributions you will make to our world in the years to come. Okay, I'm going to ask the board members to come up, and we will introduce our Students of the Month. All right, our first student is from Desert Willow, and it's Maya Coninger. From Desert Sun Academy, Ellie Radwick. From Horseshoe Trails Elementary School, Lucy Lang. From Lone Mountain, Dalton Chartier. From Black Mountain, Eben Waterman. From Sonoran Trails, Avery Hauptmann. And also from Sonoran Trails, Amanda Towns. And from Cactus Shadows, Mara Scherf. Apparently she's not here, but congratulations, Mara. What? Okay, now if parents would like a picture. Right, are we ready? All right, moving right along. Hello, moving right along. Item 2.2, financial presentation presented by Dr. Pletnick. Quiet in the gallery.
Are these principals?
Should we give him a detention? All right, Dr. Pletnick, you're up.
Good evening, President Busby and governing board members. I am going to be giving you our annual financial report, breakdown of our annual financial report. Again, per Arizona statute and statute 15904, we are required to file an annual report each year with the state. Now, when we're looking at this is kind of like the, I guess you can say, the financial Super Bowl for my department, where this is where we have officially closed out the fiscal year 24. We have all of our final numbers, and we have moved into the fiscal year 25. So this will give us, and as you know, as we budget, there's revisions that go on per the year, because we do base our numbers on our ADM projections. But again, this is it. This was our final student counts. These are all of our purchase orders that are closed out, all of our purchases for the district. Now, the purpose of the financial report is a few different items. It's for compliance, but also transparency and accountability, because we receive public funds. And again, this is, and I believe Superintendent Dolezal has said this in a few presentations, because we are a public school, we receive public funds, we are held to a very high standard. Not only do we have our annual audits, but this annual financial report is a requirement. And again, we can see other organizations, educational institutions that don't have the same requirement as we do. And again, I just want to stress this is all for transparency from receiving and spending public funds. All of these reports, after approval, will be uploaded into the state, where all of our stakeholders can look at these documents and look at the details in the documents. I'm going to be giving you kind of an overview of some of the most important items from the annual report. The annual report does consist of multiple documents. There is the general annual financial report file. There's also a school-based that breaks down the spending per school. In addition to that, there's also a food and nutrition report that we have to upload, and there's also a form for our CTED spending. So there are multiple pieces that do go along with this. In addition, there is two other reports, which is our K-3 reading budget and our K-3 annual financial report that do get uploaded to the state. So again, multiple documents showing where we spent all of our funds, what funds we did receive, and again, I'm going to be going over some of the highlights with those reports today. And the very first piece I want to cover is our revenue sources. And where do we get our revenues from? And this is from page 1 of the annual financial report. So when we look at a breakdown of all of our revenues, they do come from different areas. When we look at it, we do receive our state funding, but we also receive some state funding. And you'll see our state funding as you look through the report. Those are items such as our facilities improvement. We also receive our performance pay, our classroom money that we do get, but we also do receive some federal funds. And we do have our federal grants that we do receive for our title funds. We also, in this report, we still do have some of our COVID spending. As I covered in the last meeting, our COVID money and the end of that spending occurred last month. So you'll probably be seeing a little bit more of the COVID money on the next annual financial report. But hopefully that is the last bit of that kind of emergency funds that we see for a very long time. And if you look, we do receive 0% from Maricopa County. So that is the overall breakdown of all of our revenues. Now, one thing I do want to stress is our tax rate and where these funds come from and the property taxes. And again, you saw a majority of the money is received from that local tax base. And with our local tax base, you can see that we're all the way shifted all the way over to the right, where you do see our primary and our secondary tax when added together is about 1.5%. So we do have a very low tax rate, but again, a few things to keep in mind with this. We do not have any overrides, and out in the community, you may see we do make bond payments in our annual financial report. Those are bonds that were approved in 2014, issued in 2015, and we will be reaching maturity on our last two general obligation bonds from that time frame in 2030. So we'll be making the bond payments through July 1st, 2030 on all of those bonds. Also, what I want to make sure we remember is that we don't receive any equalization assistance and from the state. So when you see our low tax rate, as a reminder, we do actually send money. We are one of the few districts in the state that we do send money back into the general fund. So if you remember, I talked about Casemeyer on the last meeting and some of the inaccessible cash because we had cash we can't use because it's over our budget capacity. So we do have that, but we also have money that is collected from our property taxes that we don't get to spend. So again, in this full transparency, when people are looking at their tax bills, when they are looking at what's collected on the primary tax, you'll see different lines. You'll see the Cave Creek line, but you'll also see another line that's additional education tax with the ARS statute. That is for the money that we actually send back to the state. So that is not reflected in our annual financial report at all on that, but it is reflected on the tax bill. So I do want to make sure, again, in full transparency, we hear that word quite often, and I think part of that is understanding where our revenue comes from, not only how we spend that revenue. Now, what I'm going to break down is our largest part of this budget, which is our M&O, our maintenance and operation budget. And as you can see, fiscal year 23 is listed above, fiscal year 24 below. There was a reduction in about $240,000 in our maintenance and operation budget on fiscal year 24. But if you look at our spending between the fiscal year 23 and 24, you can see we're pretty much steady with how we're spending our money and how our money was budgeted. You see the largest chunk, nearly 78%, does go towards salaries and employee benefits. We actually saw an increase in purchase services this year, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on. And then you'll see we're relatively flat in supplies and our annual dues and fees that we do need to pay as a district. Now, one piece that isn't broken up here, and as we move to the next slide, that I want to look at with our maintenance and operation spending is our regular education spending is about 73% of our budget. Our special education spending has moved to over 18% of our maintenance operations budget. So last year we did see an increase in the amount we are spending in general education versus special education. One of the big pieces, and again going back one slide, is the purchase services. On the purchase services, we saw an increase in 3% purchase services for our special ed, where there was a decrease of 1% for our general education or regular education. One of the pieces that, as you look through the AFR, that I can draw your attention to is that we have had an increase in having to hire contracted teachers. And we spent over $700,000 just on contracted teachers for special education last year alone. That's not including the services that we provide our students. So our costs are increasing in that particular area. And it's something that I think moving forward we really have to pay attention to. As you know, with how we're funded through the state, we do receive our base amount per student, just over $5,000. But then again, it's a weighted average, and we do receive additional funds for our special education students, but it's not covering our costs currently. And so that is something that, again, we see an impact in our general M&O spending that we have to make sure we look at. In our breakdown of our overall spending, I broke it down into what we call functions, and essentially what a function is what the services or materials, the activity, what they're required for. And our largest, as you can see, is instruction, which we call our function 1000. And so when we add the instructional support, our student support spending, as well as our instruction spending, we spend nearly 59% of our overall budget on those categories alone to support instruction and support student learning. So as you can see, our budget isn't huge. And we had our test score presentation by Dr. Jensen last week, and we are doing a very effective job for the budget we certainly are giving, and we're making sure we're putting our money into the classroom and putting those in the supports, the student supports, the instructional supports, as well as the instructional supports. And it's how does this compare to previous years? And as you can see, again, we're relatively flat in the percentage within our M&O spent on each one of these areas. You can see our operations had a slight increase, about 2.7%. But I think, as we all know, just living in our current environment, the costs of things have increased, including energy. So we are seeing that impact of increased prices on just our operations and keeping our operations up and running. But again, as you look at our spending compared to the prior year, we're pretty much on target with what we have been doing in previous years on our spending. And so this just gives you a general look at our annual financial report, where our money's coming in from, but also where a large majority of our money, our M&O budget, is being spent at this point. So I would now open it up for any questions that you may have.
Go ahead.
I don't have any real questions, but I did want to thank you for that. Very good detail, and I appreciate the transparency and the accountability pieces that are in here, because it is definitely something. It's a very complex machinery, this school funding, and you can't do certain things you're so restricted on what you can and cannot do. So I appreciate all the you make it understandable. So hey, good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for making it easy to read and with all the graphs, and I think just making everybody aware of how the budget works, I think is important. Of this bucket, just because you can't move your buckets around to pay for different things. So I think those charts really show that. And then also just bringing up the information of the contracted services. I think knowing that that special education isn't fully funded per the state, and that we have to kind of make up that difference and how that affects the budget. So I think that's an important thing to also bring awareness around. And then as far as, could you just give a little bit more information on how it compares to like a charter school budget and a private school budget, as far as, does it have to be uploaded? Do they have as many details?
I will say on the private school side, no, not at all. And I wish I had. There's a great chart we have in a community presentation of some of the requirements. Charter schools do have some reporting requirements. I will say, again, public school requirements are much more stringent on that. But you can certainly, if you look at the levels, it's going to be your public school, your charter schools, and then your private schools with, honestly, not a whole lot of reporting that's necessarily required on that end.
Thank you.
And Vice President Walker, Dr. Play, I'd also just like to add that we have to follow AFR, these federal regulations for guidance and purchasing and all of those things that is much more stringent. Charter schools have to follow an abbreviated portion of that, so it's, again, not quite as tight in things, even along the purchasing side, which is the other half of business. You know, not just paying bills and getting money in, but that whole requisition and thing. We have a much higher level than charter and private schools, definitely. And I appreciate Dr. Pletnick's notice of our accountability with tax dollars. And again, I will take competition any day of the week. I just want to play by the same rules. So if you take tax dollars, I think you should be held accountable to the public in terms of where those are going.
For sure. And from just bringing back to the charter schools, the funds per student is even different than what we receive, correct?
Yes, correct, Member Walker. So what we're looking at when we're looking at charter school funding, the very first piece is you do, again, $5,013 per student. And again, but it's a weighted average based upon the 100-day count. That's that ADM piece, average daily membership. But then there's another piece that kind of replaced the capital side of everything, that funding in years past, which is district additional assistance, DAA dollars. And so for DAA dollars, it varies K-8 students or high school students, and we receive $600 or less based upon K-8 or high school students, where you're looking at charter schools receive CAA. And with CAA, you are looking at $2,000 per student or $2,400 per student. Now, those funds, one key piece about those funds that we have to remember, it's not like our projecting our ADM, that's kind of a moving target. because we get funded based upon those 100 days. The DAA for us is funded on our last year enrollment value.
Okay.
So that's just it doesn't make a difference necessarily with the charter school funding, but just to let you know how that's calculated.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, thanks for all your work. I know, being almost 2 years on the board and watching Marcy's work and now yours and really learning to better understand budgeting and how it works. I mean, I think you guys are miracle workers, and I'm so impressed with the job that you do to keep our district up and running as well as it does, and literally pulling money out of a hat somewhere. I'm just wondering, and more than anything, I'd love to have this just in public record. If you could go back to that first slide that has the different districts, where like Queen Creek is 7 point, that one.
Yep.
Could you just explain a little bit, like what's the difference? Why is Queen Creek so high, like at 7.13, and we're so low? Like what? And I'm just hoping, because there's a lot of conversation out there about our budget, maybe that anybody watching the recording can better understand what all this means.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the very first thing I want to draw your eyes to is after Queen Creek, you see two little letters, and that's an M and a B, and that's an M&O override, and also a bond. So what we're looking at is, and again, we're going to get very abbreviated version of the property tax. You have your limited property value, which again the tax rate is based upon. So when each year we're required to work with Maricopa County Superintendent's Office and calculate our tax rate. And so we look at the property values, what our capacity is, our budget capacity, and what would the tax rate need to be in order to get to that budget capacity if we can. Some districts, of course, as you know, like I said, we give back to the districts. Some receive money to make up the difference where their property values are so low they can't tax at a rate that they can meet their capacity. And we're just opposite on that. So what that means is their primary tax, if you look at Queen Creek, if you look at their primary tax rate, that's going to be considering that budget capacity, but it's also going to be considering, their overrides and what they pay. So that kind of makes up the tax rate. Your secondary tax is going to consider those bonds. As you can see, we still have that little bit of yellow for our secondary tax rate. But again, those are our bonds that were approved by voters in 2014, issued in 2015, and again, maturing July 1st and the 30th. So that money is now 10 years gone at this point. And again, we still have to pay the bills as, a bond matures, with our principal and interest. But that's why we still have a little bit yellow. But if you look at the difference, it's again, it has to do with the property value. And as your property values go up, it's opposite effects. As your property values go up, your tax rate's going to go down. And that's what you're seeing on that graph.
Thank you.
Thank you for such a easy to understand presentation. It's very much appreciated. You took my question, so I don't have any questions for you since you already answered it.
And no problem. And one other thing I would like to point out is this file will be uploaded to our website. So transparency-wise, anyone can go in. You're going to see it's going to be about, I would say, 15 tabs in an Excel sheet long just on the general AFR. But each tab is going to break down those buckets. And remember, Walker, you talked about the different buckets that we have. Yeah. So you'll be able to go in and see the M&O. You'll be able to go in and see the capital, our classroom site funds. So when our stakeholders do want to see how we are spending dollars, it is there. And it's broken down by, again, what I refer to as function codes. And all of that you can get from the Auditor General. If you go, well, it says it's a function code 1000. What does that include? That's all up on the Auditor General site. So you can see specifically, and it's broken down into categories, what we're spending money on. So again, I hope if anybody questions how we are spending money in Cave Creek, I can tell you that we are rubbing two pennies together at times to make a nickel, and our teachers are doing a wonderful job of working in the classrooms with our students with what we have.
Well, again, thank you to you and your entire department that put all of this together. It's very much appreciated, so thank you. Anything else on this? Item 2.3, Student Services Update, presented by Mrs. Sereno.
President Busby and members of the board, as Mrs. Sereno is making her way up. Just want to introduce, obviously, Mrs. Sereno. This is her, just moved into the position July 1st. Has been doing a fantastic job in everything student services. And so we asked her to kind of give a presentation and update of all the work that's been going on behind the scenes to make the day-to-day functions in schools work.
Very cool.
Let's see if this is on.
Turn it on. Hello. Turn it on. All right. Good evening, Governing Board President Busby, Governing Board, and Cabinet. So I am here to give a quick update to what has been going on since July 1st. So here we go. All right. So the first piece was the big rollout of the telecommunications. And just to remind you kind of how this all happened last March, at Sonoran Trails, we recognized that we did have some issues with engagement, students making poor choices on their telephones or their devices, watches, whatever it was, and the decision was made that we would not have cell phones or any kind of telecommunication device on campus starting the 2024-25 school year. Our colleagues at the elementary schools, or we actually started communicating that in April. Several different forms of communication went out to our parents, giving the whys, giving them opportunities to come speak to administration at Sonoran Trails. And then in May, our colleagues at the elementary schools heard kind of what we were doing. We asked them to help communicate so our 6th graders, to be 7th graders, would understand what that expectation was as well. They decided to also eliminate the telecommunication devices, started communicating that. In June, Cactus Shadows also somewhat jumped on board and made the decision that they would be using the parking lots. So Principal Barella and her team purchased the cell phone parking lots or whatever that would look like, and made the decision that they would not be seen during instructional time. They would still be able to use it during transitional time and lunches. And then in July, we communicated our plan, kinder through 12th grade, to all of our families. In addition, purchased some phone lockers so we wouldn't even have to touch cell phones if students chose to bring their cell phones or use them on campuses. This was some of the communication. I used Sonoran Trails. But much of the information and communication that was shared out and disseminated to all of the schools was somewhat taken from what we worked together as a whole. And I look at my colleagues back here, the principals, to communicate to our families what would make sense for all of the schools. This was the why that we shared out. And quite honestly, we didn't get a lot of questions as to why we would be doing this. I think we were pretty clear with the why, and that was we want our kids to be engaged. We know, I mean, every day we're hearing more and more about the negative impact, not necessarily telecommunication devices have, but what they're doing within that device and how it's certainly keeping them distracted from the learning versus, preoccupied with what was on Snap, what was in the text. Having mom, I'll admit, mom, calling and checking in throughout the school day, because why not, right? We should, right? No, we shouldn't. So I think even for parents, as I'm talking to them, that's been a big transition, not being able to say, hey, how was the math test today? And we just have to wait like our parents did, and it's okay. I think our schools, in talking with my colleagues, We have plenty and ample opportunities for students to call home if they need to, check in with any resource on campus, and so forth. So it's actually been, as far as hearing negatives, we aren't hearing a ton of them. One principal said it's just nice for this to be a district expectation and everyone is on the same page doing what is best for kids. A teacher said the kids seem to be more engaged both in class during lessons and generally speaking, they're more conversational and aware of others. If you could have seen our campuses during transition times, during, let's hurry up and finish assignments so I can get on my phone, and now that's completely eliminated. And a student actually said, our lunch is really loud right now, and we really believe, in speaking to a few principals, it's because kids are talking. They're talking about their day, they're talking about what's going on at home, they're just having conversations versus playing that really cool game online or whatever it is. So in all, I wish I could call people up with me, but I think in all, in talking with the administrators on campuses, it's been a really positive experience for students, for staff, and probably even our parents, now that we're all adjusted to not being able to have instant gratification and get a hold of our kids at any point in time. So the next one, and then if you have questions, you can ask me now, or I'll just keep rolling through it. I'll keep rolling through it. Okay. So Superintendent Dolezal has a goal for safety, and that's another piece of my position. And part of that is training 95% of our staff in ALICE training. It teaches us what to do in lockdowns. It teaches us what to do in any type of an emergency, so we're consistent. So at this point, every staff member on every campus and at district level has gone through either year 1 or year 1 and 2 of the ALICE training. And then in November, we'll roll out actually a live training. Mr. Grosso and I are getting trained so we can be trainers of trainers. And then the two of these gentlemen to my left are also trainers of trainers. And what we're going to do is go into campuses and begin doing live training for what happens if there should be an intruder that enters the classrooms, and then eventually we'll roll out to our parents what that would look like, what we're doing in our classrooms once we've trained all of our individuals on the school campuses. In regards to our different drills that we do and trainings that we've so far completed with our staff, for every drill that goes out, our parents are communicated to. We felt that it was important. It causes the more and more research that we're reading about these different drills because it's becoming such a real thing. It causes more anxiety when we're practicing drills. So we are communicating to our staff and to students when we're going to practice a lockdown drill. And it is expected kind of everyone continues to teach through that drill. Parents are made aware of what that drill is and what it was about. In all of the newsletters about a month ago, parents did receive information for what every drill means and why would we use that type of drill in a circumstance at a campus. So in addition to that, we're using the same letterhead, the same verbiage for every campus. So when parents receive so much information from schools, whether it be about fundraisers, whether it be about great things going on campus or whatever. So the same letterhead, the same type of email is going out there so parents can be alerted that this is an emergency type email. Read it, and it's fine. They'll see if it's a drill or not, but we really want, when they get that information, them to open it versus, I'll read that tonight before I go to bed type thing. So we're really trying to be transparent with what we're doing on our campuses and partnering with our parents so they can also help communicate to their kids the importance of taking these drills seriously And what did you learn about today? Why did you do a hold? Oh, because there was a coyote on campus? Okay, that makes sense. They want you to stay in the classroom, but not leave the classroom. So that's kind of happening twofold, where teachers are teaching through the drills. Parents can reiterate if they remember what was in the newsletter, but there shouldn't be surprises. And there shouldn't be more anxiety with already anxiety-ridden kids with everything else going on in the world. We don't need to add additional stress to our children. Okay, so the next big update is Kid Account. We changed over our visitor management system. And eventually, well, part of Kid Account is you can do parent pickup, you can do hall passes, you can do an emergency management system through this, and a visitor management system. So at this point, we're using Kid Account for hall passes at the high school and at the middle school. Again, it's been such a positive thing. We don't have kids roaming hallways per one child that I know very well, 22 minutes doing tour day the school. Kids are held accountable. They have 7 minutes to use the restroom or get to their location. And then if they do need a longer amount of time, administration is made aware that, little Johnny is still in the bathroom and maybe someone should go check in on Johnny or something else might be going on. And we have found where kids were having some sort of a breakdown, and that's where we brought them up to the front office and assisted them with what they needed. So we have the Hall Pass system. Right now, DSA and Black Mountain are piloting this Hall Pass system for their upper grades, I believe 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And so the kids will be prepared for that when they get to the middle school. Jumping back up to numbers 1 and 2, every campus has the check-in system. At the elementary schools, parents actually received a parent card where if they need to check out their student early, they can just swipe the card versus trying to remember their ID number. We didn't want them putting in the kids' names because if there's 23 Smiths on that campus, all 23 Smiths would come up. So that's why we purchased the parent cards for especially elementary school. By the time they get to elementary or middle and high school, the kids can do it themselves. So, and those parent cards will be good all the way through graduation if parents should need those through high school. So, as of this week, all kinder through 12th grade students are wearing school IDs while they're on campus. At the this is new for elementary school. It is a safety piece, and we're using the IDs more and more for library, for lunches, for hopefully someday buses even. It's just a part of who we are in our society these days. Whether you're at school, whether you're working, people wear badges. So we're starting that early on, which most districts do that, kinder through 12th grade. With elementary school, kids are going to leave their IDs on campus and just get used to wearing them and being able to show that, yes, I am a proud member of the Black Mountain community or whatever school it is. Finally, with the Kid Account, we are rolling out the emergency management piece. So should we have to go into lockdown, that's a part of Kid Account as well. And we're going to start rolling that out. So again, should we go into some sort of an emergency, we can easily contact parents, have the verbiage that we're already practicing with. We're in a hold, we're in a lockdown, we're in a whatever. It's a quick flip of the button and that communication goes out with attendance, with everybody who's on campus. That's the beauty of Kid Account. Whether you're Superintendent Dolezal or Jill Sereno or whoever, everyone is checking in and out of these campuses. It doesn't matter who you are. so we know, should we go in a lockdown when, if I'm a school principal and I'm in mode of making sure everyone's where they need to be, I don't have to remember, well, I think Superintendent Dolezal walked in and Dr. Jensen, but maybe she was here yesterday. You can't do that in those types of situations. So everyone is expected, which then when we roll out the emergency management system, we know exactly who's on campus and where they're at. Visitors, parents, other school officials, and so forth. All right, the mental health update. Actually, I work really closely with Beth Udiski. She is our district social worker. She's been doing just a fabulous job. She was actually going to present with me, but she left me hanging. But no, she had a different obligation, but she thought it was important for people to see the data. And this is just, oh my goodness, a small piece of what we're looking at as we decide how we're going to support counselors, what our parent forums are going to be, what programs we need to bring into our system, what do we need to do to help our kids get through these really trying times right now, and even our parents. Everyone's having a hard time right now. So we're using data, and she's got a ton that we've used from last year at the end of the year: parent surveys, student surveys, staff surveys, the Arizona youth survey. Everything we do is guided by the data that we have and what Cave Creek students' needs are, not by what even nationally, even though pretty much where nationally is. So really, as Beth and I reflected on what we've done with the mental health, these are some serious celebrations. What we were told in the past is, and not a dig on anyone, but just the work that Beth is doing, is most of our parent forums, we'd get under 10 parents to show up. We are getting anywhere, around 100, between 60. I like to embellish, but our goal really is to fill up that Fine Arts Center. So in August, we had the technology talks with Lisa Stroman. That really stemmed from what we were doing with cell phones and those telecommunication devices. Again, educating our parents. We didn't know the reaction when we had to schedule Dr. Stroman. We just wanted to give our parents the tools to understand the why behind it. It was very well attended, obviously. We think we had over 100, truly 86 signed up. But we keep sending that present. Dr. Stroman did let us record her presentation, and we continue to send it out. All the principals sent it out in their newsletters. I just sent it out again to the Sonoran Trails community for a different incident. So there's just such valuable information in there for our parents to understand and learn. We also did a Not My Kid vaping event. The data early on at Cactus Shadows was that we needed to do some education quickly. And it was with the 9th grade class. So we had Not My Kid in front of every 9th grader in August, and I did an education with that. In September, we had a session on anxiety and depression. And one thing I would like to share with you is after every one of these forums, I send out a little thank you letter to the parents. And I have to say, I probably get 10 responses back of, will you please do this again? I told my friends about it, or can you record it? And many of these we can't record, and we can't, just keep having all of these things, but people are learning from these. And again, this is the reality. Our kids have major anxiety. They're stressed out. They're saddened. They don't look like the model on social media, and so they're depressed about that. Their grades aren't good enough. I mean, you name it. This is what goes on through our kids' heads day in, day out. So parents found that really valuable. In October, we're doing something. We're partnering with the City of Phoenix. on teen dating violence. That's big, and that's something that we saw in the data really with our middle school and high school students. So we are going to bring this to the parents so they can help educate the kids. We are also inviting kids to that presentation. In November, this actually, last March, we had the FBI visit one of our schools, Sonoran Trails. We actually had a student who was involved in some of this, and I reached out to Dr. Pletnick, along with Ms. Scheer, who oversees our counselors, and said everyone needs to hear about this presentation because this is happening right here in Cave Creek. We've had other instances since, so when we parents think our kids are playing these nice, fun games on their devices, on their PS5s, they have access to all sorts of predators, and our kids are coming up with stories on how they can protect themselves and the predators from their parents knowing. And it's wild, and it blew our mind to hear what was potentially happening right here in Cave Creek. So just a small example of when I was asked, do we allow cell phones on campus? I said, well, no, but kind of, and it was during transition times and lunch. What we were told by the FBI is during, let's say 9:09, which was transition time, a student was contacting the predator to figure out the plan for that night. So who the student was going to play games with, that the predator would be called by this name, by that name, and they had the whole plan of how they would hide this from mom and dad, and it was happening. It was being created and planned out right there on our campus. So this is a big one. We're hoping we can get parents there to hear about these realities. I think as parents we want to say it isn't my kid, and my kids wouldn't do this, but that fast they get reeled into some pretty dark stuff. So that's in November. In January, if we have an agreement on some monies that the town of Cave Creek would like to give CCUSD, we would like to bring Tall Cop to Cave Creek, our entire community. This is something that he's very well known around the nation. It's something Cave Creek evidently has wanted to have forever. He speaks, he's a retired police officer who provides tools, resources, and training on substance abuse. Our goal is to make this a community event in January. We're going to invite police department. He speaks to all sorts of community members on how we can all come together to support our children in today's society. So we are really excited about this. We are planning to have speakers go to Sonoran Trails and Cactus Shadows if this money comes to us, so we can afford him to do a presentation for our older students as well, and then get as many parents and community members to a really great community event to support the students in our community. And then finally, in April, we've got Mental Health Awareness Month, where Beth is working already really closely with our counselors to do some fun activities and support our kids, but also remind them that it's okay to be a kid and have fun, and how to deal with all that's going on. So those are some of the few things that Ms. Sudiski has been working on with our school counselors, along with our administrators that are here with us tonight. And then athletics, we've got some teams who are just rocking it right now across the board, so that is super exciting. But in addition to that, we rolled out expectations for conduct when people attend our high school events. We're starting at the high school, and it will eventually roll down to other levels. But we had lots of signage made for clear bags, what we expect, just like you see at pretty much every event now. We also thought it was important to communicate our expectations. Mr. Gilmore is the athletic director at Cactus Shadows, along with the rest of the Cactus Shadows administrative team. Roll out our expectations for how do you behave when you're at an event as a parent, as a coach, and as a student. So that's been communicated to parents, and they see it right as they walk in as well as the parent initial meetings. Either Rob or myself are speaking to the parents about our expectations for how they behave. And then naturally, if we're going to ask athletes to not use language, to be kind and whatever, we would expect the same from the coaches. We're bringing back the Hall of Fame, celebrating people who came from Cave Creek Unified School District and have been successful either at college or at a professional level. So our first Hall of Famer will be recognized at homecoming, October 18th, so next Friday. And then also, and a huge shout out to our principals on every campus. We put out that we really want to highlight the different schools at each home game. So they, along with their schools, have represented very well at 2 of our 3 first home games. And then the last big thing that we're doing is on November 2nd. Our principals are working diligently to come up with projects on their campus that would support their already vision for their campus. So they've already done their goals. They submitted those to Dr. Jensen. Now they're looking at their goals and making the decision. Do I need to love on my staff? Does my campus need loving? So they're coming up with 1 to 3 maybe projects where we're inviting parents, community members, business leaders, faith-based partners, whoever it is, to come onto our campuses November 2nd, 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock a.m. And we're just going to make it a big community event where we're celebrating our great schools and working together to make them even better than what they are. And that's it. And you guys are invited to Love Our Schools Day if you'd like to come.
That was an awesome presentation.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Lots of
I've
good information.
Well, I've got some great people behind me who are supporting all these things as well, and in front of me.
You work together.
We do. They love getting emails from me, right? And hey, just a reminder. Questions?
I do have one question. Has there been any issues with the cell phones at the high school? Like, kids getting in trouble for having phones out?
I don't believe we have. I think so the first 10 days on every campus, we communicated like crazy. Kids heard it over and over and over again that this is the expectation, and we're going to give you some grace period right now, but after that 10 days, it's ours. So we really, nothing that has been brought to my attention.
That's great.
At the high school, and
And President Busby, members of the board, I'd be happy, we can look at last year's, we could pull discipline data from any campus you want. I think you mentioned the high school, so we can look at how many telecommunication violations happened last year, and then we can look at how many there have been this year. So we'll add that to the weekly update Friday.
That'd be great.
Just so you can see some numbers that go along with that.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm walking around some of the campuses quite a bit, and, I'll ask the kids, and most will say, it's okay. Like, we're okay. I mean, especially at the high school, I think they kind of like at least that transition time. But for the most part, during that instructional time, that's what our kids want. They want to learn. They want to see and hear what's going to prepare them for the future. So when they're preoccupied and feel like they have to because 12 other people are, that's the other problem. Some of the kids don't really want to be on their phone, but because everyone else is, I'm going to get on my phone too. So all of that's gone. And it's kind of neat to walk into these classrooms and see.
That's great. Anybody else?
I just have a quick question in the whole planning and leading up to that, the technology piece of it, eliminating that. Were there other districts that you looked at that had done this? And was there any data on raising like educational standards? I mean, in my mind, I can't imagine that it wouldn't raise everything up, the proficiency and everything, because they're actually learning now and they're not distracted by that. So was there any of that? And have we set any goals as a district for how we want to see that hopefully improve in those areas?
I don't know if we have that data. There's so many pieces to data and, the increase and what grade levels and what have you. As far as goals, I'm not sure if that has been a discussion.
Yeah, President Busby, members of the board. What we now know is, and is not arguable, is there is data out there that cell phone and social media use is harming our kids. So I've been out in the community, talked on a podcast. If we are expected, and I think we are, and I think we should keep bad people out of our school because they're going to harm kids, then do we not have the same obligation to keep something else that we know is harming kids out of our school? So that kind of data in terms of the harm it can do is out there. We have not set goals because we've not had a baseline of any type in terms of, hey, now that we've done this, we're expecting to see a 5% gain. And no, so there are no goals with that at this point in time. Really, it would be more of a mental health goal and even something just qualitatively as opposed to something that we can quantitatively measure. Right, but in terms of actual performance, I'm certainly curious. I don't know if we could tie that directly to it, though. It might be something that we look at when we get our data back this year and see, do we think there's some type of correlation, but nothing formalized in terms of goals.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, can somebody tell me what the ALICE acronym is? I can't remember what that all stood for. Does anybody have what all that is?
The what?
Alice.
Oh.
Mrs. Serino, you got this?
This is it.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I get my real training in 2 weeks. So it's alert.
Alert.
Are you going to help me?
Yep.
Okay. I would hate to steal it from you, though.
Lockdown.
Okay.
Inform. Inform is the I.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And communicate.
Counter.
Oh, thank you.
Evacuate.
And evacuate.
Okay.
So
I get my
basically,
training
yeah,
in 2 weeks.
Those are
my
all
official training. Too.
Those are all the options. Gone are the days that something's going on and you myrtle the turtle, you go into shell, you hide in a corner. Like that was everybody did it no matter what was going on. That was a standard response. That was it, period. Now, because of all the things that have gone on, experts know the best thing you can do is equip adults with all the different options and allow them to make the best choice for them and their students in that moment of crisis. What do you need to do to keep you and your students safe? And it can be any one of those things, regardless of that situation. Ultimately, we are trusting our adults to make the right decision and the best decision for them and the students that they're over, as opposed to saying everybody does this, because that's not always the best thing to do. So that's really where that ALICE training comes into play, is what are all of your options, and then in a particular situation you are in, what's the best choice for you and your kids?
There was not a quiz, that's all.
Oh, gosh. I'll have it next time you ask me.
Just the other comment, the whole thing on the mental health was huge and important, and it needs to be brought to the forefront more often. People downplay it, and they say that we're only here to teach kids. I know from experience, and you said it so well, that when all these things are in the way, sometimes it's really hard to do reading, writing, and math when there's so much anxiety and so much. So I appreciate the fact that there is such a concentration on that here. So just wanted to put those comments out there. So thank you.
Yep.
And then President Busby, a couple last minute things. Kind of going back to the athletics, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Jill, but when it comes to the code of conduct and parent code of conduct, so one thing that I learned this year is that our parents get rated at each game on their sportsmanship and their behavior, essentially. And we were last in the state last year for
Yes.
very
Yes.
low rating. And what were we in the last or most recent rating? Fourth in our division. Yeah, so we've already seen a huge increase in parent behaviors. Not only, I think, with the policies we put in place, but I think with Ms. Serrano, Mr. Gilmore, having those conversations with our parents, making them aware where they're actually asking. Mr. Gilmore had said our parents know that they're getting scored on how they're behaving, and they're asking how they're doing. And so we've seen a really big increase in that and improvement in that. And then, obviously, kind of going off with Dr. Pletnick's presentation, we have a tight budget, and we have to run very lean. And a result of that is someone like Mrs. Serrano wearing many, many, many hats, from student safety, student discipline, Title IX, mental health, things like that. And so she just does a tremendous job in wearing those multiple hats. And unlike most districts where you have a different person for each one of those hats, Jill gets to wear 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 when I want to pass something along to her. And she has to put up with me. So she's just done an incredible job. And so we really appreciate everything that she's done. So.
Good job. Okay. Action consent. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 4.1, call to the public. Do we have any? We have none. All righty. Item 5, old business, there is none. Item 6.1, memorandum of understanding between the town of Cave Creek and Cave Creek Unified School District, presented by Dr. Pletnick.
President Busby, Governing Board. This memorandum of understanding is between the town of Cave Creek and CCUSD. The town of Cave Creek is a recipient of settlement funds pursuant to the terms of One Arizona Distribution of Opioid Settlement Fund Agreement. This agreement establishes approved purposes for the distribution and spending of the funds appropriated thereunder, and one which is in support of nonprofit and related organizations that focus on youth education and community drug prevention. The town of Cave Creek has designated CCUSD as a recipient of funds they receive. So we ask that you accept this agreement as written.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
Do we have the dollar amount of what this would be? I know Ms. Serrano in her presentation thought about using that for that tall cup presentation. Do they have to be other tangible things? I know we have like vape detectors and opioids, mostly pill form, but are there talks about what we would specifically use this type of funding for?
And I believe it's $40,000 total, or more. It depends. Right now, it was 40 at the last meeting, but Ms. Serrano is in charge of the programming for that.
And Dr. Plutnik, Mrs. Sereno, at least in item 3 there, the fund distribution talks about an initial distribution of up to $25,000. So that's at least in the MOU. I think there have been talks about, again, that says up to, but I think they even talked, because they've gotten more since then. This will be a settlement that continues to roll in to those groups that are choosing to take it. So it could be more, but I would stick with at least the $25,000 that's in the MOU at this point.
So what we've talked about is, Governing Board President Busby, Governing Board, what we've talked about is really helping this with our mental health month at our schools. And again, there's such a direct correlation to substance abuse, to the anxiety, to the depression, to everything going on in these kids' worlds. So that's really what we're looking at. Continued parent forums, because it's hard to find really good ones. there's so many good ones out there, and a lot of them cost money. So using that towards that, and then along with getting our kids in front of some of these presenters as well, if they're good enough. We believe the tall cop is good enough to ask for permission from our principals to take some instructional time from the content to instruct on the other important things that we've been talking about tonight. So that's the goal. The initial goal is what we get, and then if there continues to be more money, we'll just continue to use the data again that we have from this year and put it towards next year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
This just is exciting that we have that relationship with the town and they're giving us those funds. So
Yeah, Vice President Walker, I would like to give a shout out to the town, and I think it's been a long time since there's been a cooperation between the town and our district in terms of this type of partnership where they're really investing some monies in the district and the kids and those types of things. So I really appreciate the mayor and the town council who've gone above and beyond and added us to this list.
Definitely. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 6.2, Annual Financial Report for 2023-24, presented by Dr. Plotnick.
Right. As I previously stated, the district is required to submit the annual financial report to the county superintendent and AD by October 15th. The reports that are required are the annual financial report, food service report, the CTED supplanting worksheet, and we ask that you approve the annual financial report and the documents involved.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 6.3, first reading of policy 3-107, fiscal accounting and financial reporting, presented by Dr. Plotnick.
All right, you get to hear from me a lot today. Policy 3-107 has been revised, and the change clarifies that the school district has flexibility regarding the number of statutory days, which is 180, if the district maintains the requisite number of instructional minutes. So as it's written, it would be moving from 180 days of instruction, and that requires the requisite amount of instructional time, to 180 days or the equivalent requisite number of instructional minutes. And this is for the purpose of calculating the student's average daily membership, again, average daily membership, what we are funded on.
Okay.
And we ask that the governing board approves the change to policy.
Well, and again, I'll read the recommended action is this item will be brought back for a final reading, in which case there is no action required, or move that the governing board approve policy 3-107, fiscal accounting and financial reporting, as a first and final as presented.
I'd like to move that this be a first and final.
Second.
Okay. Any questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 7.1 are upcoming calendar events, and it's not you this time, Dr. Plotnick. Mr. Dolezal.
President Busby, members of the board, few events that are coming up. We've got Oktoberfest at Harold's Cave Creek Corral from 6 to 11 on this Saturday. They have always been a great partner, and part of that fundraiser does go to all the school's PTOs. So we thank Harold's and our PTOs for their ongoing support of CCUSD. On the 15th, we've got our Parent Community Forum. Again, that teen dating and violence, paint Phoenix purple, I believe, is the city of Phoenix's motto through there. And then October 17th, the Cactus Shadows High School IB students are running a governing board candidate public forum at the Fine Arts Center from 6 to 8 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Item 8, adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. It's 7:25.